Is there anything that you still find challenging? Anything that you still struggle with, maybe most?
Lots of things I struggle with.
Yeah.
I probably the biggest thing that I struggle with nowadays is things that feel like work for me and things that don't. I would relate it in this way. As an entrepreneur that had a business for 20 years, all my eggs were in basically one basket, which is super challenging, but also super easy to know what I do each day. I show up and that is my whole life, right? Besides not talking my family and my personal, but that's my whole focus of work efforts. And after success, I can do whatever I want, so to speak. And the challenge is now I have to figure out all the things that excite me that don't feel like work. They feel like fun because that's what my business did for most of those years. That's the real challenge. So,
welcome to the Perreira Show. In this episode, I interview Mike Fata. Mike shares his story of losing 100 pounds as an 18-year-old when he was weighing 300 pounds and how instilling healthy habits and completely changing how he approached taking care of himself helped him grow a business to do 100 million per year and end up selling it for 419 million. Now Mike is a mentor and coach to other entrepreneurs. He's on the board of a bunch of different companies. He's had 3 9-figure exits, and he just gives a little bit of a look behind the curtain to how he thinks about taking care of himself and how he prioritizes his own well-being. Hope you enjoy. Dude, I appreciate you coming on. Big time. Yeah, I know we hadn't even connected yet, really. So, I think the mission or the main juice with this show is to really explore that intersection of mental health, mental well-being, overall well-being, really, and business, and success. And I thought it'd be amazing to reach out to some people who I follow, whose content I resonate with. A lot of people I've already connected with and spoken to, so I know them. But people that understand it, that prioritize it, and that are really kind of walking the walk with it. And the idea, of course, is to have conversations around topics that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And dive into. But I just feel like, it's growing so much, right? We're gaining just a lot of momentum with this side of things, from well-being and mental and everything.
I love talking about it. Entrepreneurship, because it's really a lifestyle, right? And the two go hand in hand. But I don't think you need to be an entrepreneur to realize the benefit of being your best self. But for sure, through the lens that I'm living, entrepreneurs need that. They're not going to be successful likely for the long run without it. But maybe it's true whether you're working for somebody.
Yeah. Well, dude, I think this is actually a cool place to start, because I saw on your LinkedIn about you, forget the exact words you said, but it was like you got into entrepreneurship because of your health.
Yeah. I went through my big health change when I was 18 years old. So I fell prey to fast food. And by the time I was 18, I weighed 300 pounds and just became sick and tired of being sick and tired. And put a lot of effort to changing my diet, changing my lifestyle, starting to work out, kind of learn all about health and prioritize health. But I was starting kind of from zero. But that after 100 pounds of weight loss, that led me into getting interested in hemp, which led me into the health food business. So for 25 years now, I've not only been trying to live my best self from a health standpoint, but I've been in the business of health, which I like those two. They go well together because they're kind of always on. The people that I'm hanging out with are interested in health generally, or promoting a healthy product, or manufacturing. And it started 30 years ago, I guess now, when I started that health change at 18.
Yeah. Do you think, it's so interesting for a few different reasons, and there's a couple ways I want to take it, but I want to start with, did you have the entrepreneurial bug growing up? Did you have any inclination that maybe this is...
Yeah, I think I always did. And quite simply, I grew up with a single mom, and we were pretty poor. And so the entrepreneurial bug was always like, well, how do I don't know if I wouldn't even class it as entrepreneurship then. It was like, well, how do I get more money, right? And how can I get some money to buy things that I really wanted? And then as I got older, that definitely changed when I started the business to, I want to be a millionaire. Like, I want to be rich, which I thought a millionaire was rich. Maybe it was at the time, it's not anymore. But I was always looking for ways to make money. Just came from not having enough of it.
Yeah. How did that transition end up working for you? Like, how did you go from dialing in your own health? And it takes a massive amount of commitment and overcoming challenges and struggles to lose 100 pounds. I haven't had to lose that much weight, but I know how much it takes just
Yeah,
to try and stay fit. Yeah.
It's like many things, right? You need the information and you got to have an understanding of what you're going to do. So I knew nothing about diet and nutrition, had to learn all about, why you want to eat certain amounts of protein and fats and carbs during the day, and like what clean sources of them were, and how do you cook them, and like, everything on the diet, because before I just wasn't educated about that. So you need the information, but then you need to practice that. You need the discipline. That part of it, like I do have a lot of discipline that I've created over the years, but it simply came from feeling better, feeling like better each day. When you feel better, when you feel like when you hit rock bottom and you feel really crappy, which at 300 pounds is my worst day on this planet, right? Every day hurt, and it was painful, and it was depressing, and all that kind of stuff. When you start feeling better, then self-motivation to put more effort there.
Yeah. You use a positive feedback loop.
Very much so.
It's like I share content just about alcohol and how I went away from drinking. It took me, I was just kind of curious about it. And I did 2 years of just cutting back, having this pie in the sky, or kind of this ideal relationship with alcohol, where I'm like, I would love to just be in a place where I have it on New Year's, or I have a glass of wine if there's a really nice bottle, something where I was just in control of it. Right. And what I noticed was the less I drank, better I felt. So simple. Right. And so what would happen is the thought of drinking again was less and less desirable. And I just found myself, and then ultimately I had like an aversion to it. I remember walking in Trader Joe's and just seeing the beer section, just one random day, nothing special. And I noticed my mouth started to water in like disgust. It was so interesting. And I share that because I think to your point about feeling better in the positive feedback loop, I always think, because I know there's often resistance to people maybe eating clean, or maybe giving up whatever they're eating just because it's familiar. But I always think about this. I'm like, man, there's a reason that people, when they start to get in shape, they start to get healthy, they eat well, they do the right things. There's a reason they keep doing that. It's not because it's miserable. It's not because they feel like shit. People don't stop drinking and continue to not drink because they feel worse. And it's so simple, but because you just feel so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I have it's probably, I'm a little mixed on alcohol on that one. And I never drank when I was younger because it just wasn't a thing. And then when I jumped off on my health journey at 18, I didn't drink alcohol because I was so focused on, going to the gym, proper nutrition, proper sleep, and all that. And then probably for 10 years plus of my entrepreneur career, I didn't drink because I wanted to be super focused. There was a little bit of a purist part, which I say wasn't necessarily the healthiest thing for me, thinking that I could be perfect. I had to overcome this thought of that. Now at 48 years old, I do love a glass of a Chianti, and I don't overdrink for me, but I've gone to a place for me that after a decade, I was like, I want to be able to enjoy it. I don't believe all alcohol is bad alcohol all the time, right? It's kind of maybe the dose is the medicine, or the dose is the poison, or the atmosphere and the environment, or the product itself. There's a lot of different pieces of that. So I get, and I commend people that don't drink and are taking time or just putting focus elsewhere. But I'm also, I'm an advocate for how positive it is for me in small doses now as compared to where I was before. So it's, you never know what the future is going to have in store, but I get you from the less things we put in our body that we ultimately have to detoxify, or it's probably the better.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with food, right? Like,
my diet, I'd say my diet is something that I'm super critical on, because, I can have a glass of red wine out at a nice dinner and tell you that there's like zero effect on me, but if I ate fried foods, generally is probably the worst. Processed sugar probably second, but fried foods, like having what a normal person would probably as like a plate of French fries or something will ruin me for days. My digestion, my energy level, my detox, my skin, either I'm just super sensitive to that. So eating whole unprocessed foods is my main focus, and that's I'd probably say if it was alcohol, it would be like an organic red wine, probably as close to a whole food as you're going to get for alcohol. But diet is everything. We're made up of what we eat.
Well, I want to dive more into kind of your practice, right? And like all the things that you do and, that help you show up as your best. But before we do that, just to provide a little bit of context into why that's all important, can you share just a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey, how you started out after or going into your first venture, and then kind of where you're at now.
Yeah. Yeah, so 18 years old, I jumped on my health and weight loss part of my life, which led me to founding Manitoba Harvest when I was 21, in 1998. And then over 20 years, and Manitoba Harvest was the pioneer in commercializing hemp foods, so hemp hearts, hemp protein, hemp milk, a whole slew of hemp food products. And over 20 years, we grew that business to $100 million revenue. And in 2019, sold it in a very large transaction, $419 million transaction. And then over the last 5 years, I've, reinvented myself as an entrepreneur into more of an investor, advisor, board chairman, and then now also an author and speaker. So now it's been 26 years of entrepreneurship for me, but I'm at kind of stage 2 of my career.
Yeah, I was going to say, you built it up, you had the exit, and I would imagine, was there a bit of I want to say a dead period, but like a transition period for you?
For sure, yeah. Grieving, and a lot of entrepreneurs. I've been part of 3 9-figure exits, and everyone always thinks that's great, and it is great. Monetarily, it's great, but there's a grieving process for entrepreneurs. I had the business for 20 years, so I think of business like it's like your children. My kids are 15 and 13 now, but like you birth something, you birth a business, you raise it, and then one day, if you sell it, it's kind of like your kids when they're moved out of home. You don't see them anymore. You're not part of it. And so there is a grieving process. So when we sold the business in 2019, it took me and it so happened that unfortunately my mom died unexpectedly, and my ex and I decided it was time to get a divorce. And so I had the triple whammy all within like a month or so. And it took me like 6 months of grieving that old life of mine. I couldn't show up to the office anymore and talk to our team of 200 people and be actually involved in the business at all. And then I also couldn't have my kids half the time as well. And I couldn't go see my mom, And I openly share about those things because people go about that the different ways. I learned that like talking about it and actually grieving the process, like, shit, that sucks. I love that life, and that's not my life anymore. And it's not going to come back to that. So it took me about 6 months of monk mode, like just hyper tense, focused on my health and what's next. This and grieving those losses and letting yesterday die. And then it came to me like, quite simply, I wanted to be helpful. And that's kind of led to everything that I've set up now over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Everything I'm doing is generally being helpful. And it's the most selfless thing that I do, just because it feels good for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that appreciate you sharing that too at the transition period. And what I'd love to know is what that process looked like for you. You touched on it a little bit, but those 6 months, like what were the things that you really dove into? Like you were really trying to figure out, maybe was it, because what I see often, with the guys I'm working with is maybe they're at a crossroads, they're in a transition period in life. Maybe they're, they've climbed the ladder, they're at the executive level, they're doing great, but they're realizing something's off. And it's almost like there's this call to reestablish purpose, gain traction in life again. Like maybe it's find their new identity, although I don't totally love that definition. That's for a different conversation probably. But just seeing this in these moments of transition or change or loss or, something else, it can be really, really difficult. So I'm curious, like how you thought about it. Like what were maybe the steps that you took to help facilitate that grieving process for you?
Yeah. The first one is focusing on my health. I've had, I know people talk about routine, routine gets good and bad.
It's hot right now.
Bad rap, it's a hot topic nowadays, but, I've always had a pretty strong health routine, which is, prioritize my warm-ups, my strength training, my cardio, my sauna, now cold plunge in the last number of years, meditation. And if I do my full regime, if I have the time, not every day is like this, but now more days than not, it's like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour session. And so when I was in hyper transition mode, I knew that's what keeps me very centered, grounded, feeling strong, feeling confident, allowing myself to process in the moment. So that was the number one. But I took also, because I'm a CEO of 25 years, practical process to it. And I went to, I've been going to therapy for 20 years, but I did a 12 specific therapy sessions around grief and grief processing, because I was experiencing the triple loss of grief. And working with my therapist and talking through it was hugely beneficial to me. Shortly thereafter, I started on social media, and I think that's what the world would see from me now is like I share openly the challenges that are happening in my life, and I do it because it releases tension. You know, I've learned that from being at my therapist's office when she would say something, how does it make you feel to hear that coming out of your mouth? I was like, sounds ridiculous, and now I'm relieved, right? Like I've instead of hiding in my own shadows, I've learned to stand in my light. So, you know, focused on health, and that was also, you know, physical, mental, and emotional processing health, and then giving myself time, which is what I tell all people that are in transition. Like if someone in your family dies, or you change jobs, or you change careers, or, you know, whatever the positive or negative, it's all still transition. The best thing you could do is be your best self, focus on your health, and then clearly vision what you want next to look like. Because coming out of transition, you can either be better off or worse off. Not normally this is same as, right? Because it's made your life transition. So you want better off. So, being clear what that good looks like for you and giving yourself time to get there is exactly what I did. And that started out just, you know, on the help side of things. You know what, I'm just going to have conversations with entrepreneurs. I was having about 10 or maybe 20 a week, which is pretty high, you know, giving 30 minutes of my time, understanding where they're at in their business, and if there's any way that I could be helpful for them, like an introduction, a reference, in some way. And so I had, you know, thousands of conversations with entrepreneurs over the last couple of years, and that's led to a very strong investment portfolio and consulting practice and book sales and public speaking and all the things that the world's seeing of me now started from the 2.0 part of my back.
You know, I mean, dude, I love that. I mean, I love you being going to therapy for so long, but what stands out to me is just, it feels like such an outlier. You know, the more guys that I talk to who are high performers, you know, maybe solopreneurs, they're, you know, on executive levels, there is this sense of loneliness. You know, there's this sense of like, I don't feel like anybody gets what I'm going through. You know, even if you're in a great relationship, right? Even if you have a partner, it's like, or you have maybe a supportive family or supportive siblings or your best friend, it's like there often seems to be what feels like a disconnect. And it's like, man, it feels like I can't share with them because they're not necessarily going to get it. And so what a lot of, especially for men, this is mostly, you know, I work with specifically men. And so it's kind of my audience, but it's like, you know, we kind of bottle that stuff up. Feel like we have to take it on.
And it's real, right? Like, I'm a big believer in community. That's why I put my effort to build such a strong community, because if your community wants you to win and they're supportive, you can't lose, and have that safe space. So believe me, when I was, by the time that Manitoba Harvest was a $50-60 million a year business, probably even before that, but for sure at that level, after we sold the first time, the majority of it, and I tried to share with anyone the problems that I'm having, guess what happened? They're like, oh yeah, Mike, you're having problems, right? Like, look at you, your life's so good, and all the money and the success and stuff. And that's only one piece of life. And so you know, I joined Young Presidents Organization, YPO, 14 years ago now, which is a group of executives that all have similar challenges. What I've learned, you know, they're all leading like companies and have their family challenges and finance challenges and stuff. And so it has been a safe place. So I'm a big believer in that type of community, whether it's you know, YPO or EO or some of the other, you know, larger national, international organizations, and or, you know, smaller groups and communities. So it sounds like, you know, what you're building, if you're helping in a group format, seeing others experience similar challenge. And what I've learned, you know, when someone's not trying to solve your problem, like tell you what to do, but they'll listen and maybe give you some of their experience of what they've done when they were in a similar situation, it can be hugely helpful.
Yeah. What do you see as the biggest, I don't know if mistake's the right word, but yeah, maybe the biggest mistake you're seeing with entrepreneurs that you're speaking to specifically in terms of what we're chatting about today, in terms of taking care of themselves and balancing maybe performing at work and actually truly taking care of themselves to be the best version of themselves so they can really do it.
Yeah, I think they just underestimate the diminishing law of return that happens when because and more men than women, I see this happening, but men think, and this may go back to like the hunter gatherer time or whatever, men can think that they just got to go do their job, literally bring home the bacon, whatever it is. And until that's done, sacrifice everything else, including their health.
Yeah.
And it's such a diminishing law of return to do that. And most entrepreneurs don't see that until it's too late. I didn't. I went through, even after I hit my rock bottom at 18, got my health in order, started focusing on health, got in the health food business. I still allowed myself through the scale to building $100 million business. There was many 80, 100-hour work weeks that I worked through, years of periods there that I let myself think, I'm good with 6 hours a night sleep. I know from years, decades before that, like 8 hours sleep for me, and that's a foundation. I'm good with 6 hours sleep, until one day, it's like a light switch flipping. Like, people don't realize that the burnout cliff it doesn't happen gradually. It can start gradually, but all of a sudden there's a switch that flips and your nervous system gives out. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs are blind to that, but it's coming from a survival place of like, get all that work done. And then it is, So we talk about in business, working in your business and working on your business.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of that in all aspects of life. We're all living in our life. Are we working on our life?
I love that.
What does that mean? Are you taking the time to set your routine, set your foundation, put some structure and organization to the thought of sustainability, or are you just busy every day doing all the things you're doing, and that then you don't have a clear lens of like where you're going.
Yeah, that makes me think of, I use the term North Star, right? General term, and you can have different North Stars for areas of your life. But how do you think about that? And just maybe we can go from the top down, looking at working on it. Like, what are really the main objectives, and how do you kind of work backwards and to work that into your day-to-day practice, as I call it? So whether that's physically taking care of yourself, whether that's going out and executing your goals, like how do you think about structuring that from the top down?
Yeah, so I'm a big governance guy in business, and I've adopted it in my life. I think about things in an annual plan, sometimes a multi-year plan too, but for this basis, like an annual plan, and so I get really clear on like, what are my goals? What are my personal goals for the year? And I keep it simple, like 5 different things that I'm going to focus on personally, but the same thing for business, 5 business goals, and then 5 family goals. And over time, it's changed. There's some fluidity to it. I used to be more thought in a rigid goal, like I want to work out 300 days this year, and I've had that as a goal many years back, right? Instead of, sometimes it's changed to not be a specific goal, but a direction for myself, saying like, hey, I want to do more yoga and meditation. That's been a number of years on my top 5 personal things to focus on. I just find if it's 5, 5, and 5 of personal and your family and in business, it's really easy to literally have that list on your desk or on your bulletin board and glance at it and go, hey, I'll give you the examples of family is like date nights with my girlfriend or one-on-one trips with my kids. And so you could look and say, am I living that life? Like, am I putting effort there?
Yeah.
Do I want to change that? If I want to change that direction, then I need to step back and like realign those 5 goals for the year and then live it, right? So I'm a big believer in setting the structure and the governance up like that, and it makes it easy then to operate within those guide rails.
Yeah, I love that. I love the last piece you said too, where you can adjust it. It's so simple. And I heard this 2 years ago from a buddy. He's like, the purpose of setting a goal isn't to achieve it. It's not. He's like, you set a goal and you want to work towards it. He's like, but the whole point of it is who you become in the process, your growth, your evolution. And while going after a goal, you can learn one of 2 things. Either your path to get there needs to be adjusted because it's not working, or while you're on the path, you realize that's not really a goal I'm super fired up about. And I kind of wrote it down, but I can adjust it and change it. And for whatever reason, that I felt like I just had a weight lifted off me thinking about it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you have to give yourself permission to change. There is this fine line, right? And people get caught up into it all the time. Like, have you given it enough and you should just stick to it? Or is it time to change? And the only way that I've realized the right answer for me on that is that if I'm being my healthiest self, I could really trust my intuition or my gut feel. And if my gut feel says change, make the change, in times when I feel like I'm unslept or unwell, I don't make major decisions like that because I don't have a strong gut feel or my intuition isn't as strong as I know it can be when I have the clarity from just being really healthy,
Yeah.
And, but we have to give ourselves permission to change. And I actually like it. It made me think, my son started going to high school this year, and a lot changed since I was in high school. I dropped out of high school, so I didn't really go to high school, but in the, 30 years or 35 years, they don't score kids now. They only score kids in high school, even at the end of the year, because they've realized that if you give someone a mark in their first class and they get a 55%, student is likely to give up and say, I can't do it, and I can't hit the goal. But the opposite is also true, that if they get a 90%, they either obsess about getting 100%, which is not a great behavior, or they start coasting and they think, I already got 90%, I hit my goal already, right? And so instead they change to a 1, 2, 3, 4 system where, 1 is not satisfactory, you're not getting the work done. 2 is like you're getting the work done, but you could improve. 3 is like you're excelling at the work and you could train somebody else, like you're that good at it. And 4 is you've mastered it. Now move on to your next goal, your next task. I was like, oh, this is great, because that's how we set it up in business. Like, we're not giving anyone grades. We're telling people, like, here's where you're excelling at, here's where you could do better at, and here's where you're doing so great that you can help other people, coach other people, train other people.
It sounds way more process oriented too than outcome focused.
I think it prepares the students more. And I had a chance to talk to the principal on it, but they just their latest developments in the education program like that over the last 3, 4, 5 years. They said it just helps people to set up for what it's like in the real world, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're not getting 70s and 60s and 80s and 90s% in the real world. We're basically
unless you're in sales and your number is on the leaderboard for everybody to see every month. Oh, flashbacks. You said something about that I thought was really interesting, is just about that fine line, which I think is such an important piece to not gloss over, but the fine line of really knowing, have you put in enough work, and really tuning into that place in you, within each of us that carries that deep intelligence, that wisdom, and not just changing goals because you may be underslept, you may be just stressed out in more of a survival state. And I think what really builds that, or what allows that, to you to really understand, hey, where am I towing the line? Is this really a decision? Is cultivating a deep sense of self-awareness. And I feel like that's something that, you've clearly built over time with that practice. It sounds like you started when you were about 18. So what does your practice look like every day? And again, practice is kind of what you're eating, maybe workouts. I know you mentioned sauna and cold plunges, everything that you feel like is in the realm of your overall well-being.
Yeah. So it's shifted over the years, right? I used to be a vegetarian. I used to be a vegan. I've changed my diet up to enough. I would qualify my diet as I live a Mediterranean diet. With quality focus. So I don't eat any processed foods, generally additives, preservatives, food coloring, agents, anything like that. My house is like a health food store. My kids don't love all of that, but it's been like that for 25 years. Just don't have any processed foods around. Eat very clean, mostly fruits and vegetables with animal products. And so every meal is like that. And I love cooking. So, my day usually goes, I've been for the last 3 years now, maybe 4 years, I've been intermittent fasting, which is the approach that I took when I first started losing the weight many years ago. In the morning, I have some coffee and I usually have an organic green juice. I make fresh green juice at home. And then I'd go and work out and weight training, cardiovascular, I run, swim, row. And I like the thermotherapy with the sauna and the cold plunge. Meditation has been a practice of mine now for 15, 16 years. I did a workshop called Babaji Kriya Yoga, which there's ashrams around the world, in Canada, the US anyway, for that, and taught me a certain breathing exercise technique and 6 different meditations. And I do that on the regular, usually after I worked out, usually in the sauna. And it's 5 minutes of breath work and 15 minutes of meditation. And then, eat healthy food. My work day now is probably 4, maybe 6 hours a day. Like, I'm way more focused on deep work and actually getting things done than I used to be. 12 hours and get whatever I can done in 12 hours. And I'm a single dad, full time to 2 teenagers. So, taking care of my kids and my family and really creating that atmosphere of learning and health and fun is a big focus, and it's my time. So that's kind of the day, the 2 meals that I would eat after the kind of morning, usually lunch and dinner, is some form of protein and carbohydrate and some healthy fats. And, if that's like a chicken breast and then a bunch of veggies and a sweet potato or some rice. And, I like to kind of mix it up and keep it fresh, but it's all just clean food.
What I hear is just the fundamentals and simplicity, right?
That part is very it's very simple. Like, again, I went through times where I got super into supplementation, and then I got away from that and thought, hey, I should be able to get everything from the food if I'm choosing the right foods. Yeah. And now I'm 48 years old. There's some supplements that I take because I know that even on top of a great diet, they just serve me well. But it's very minimal. And very simple.
Yeah.
So I'm a naturalist as well. Like, I generally don't do well with pharmaceuticals unless it's like a wartime effort. There's like a real reason to break something or something. But I'm pretty much a naturalist.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We're pretty aligned there. Dude, I got to ask, how the heck did you get introduced to Babaji?
One of my good friends, who's also in the natural products industry, one of the co-founders of Samazon, Ed Nichols, was a practitioner. So he was helping facilitate at ashrams and remote. So he came to my house and did initiation. But known Ed for 25 years, being in the industry, and he's no longer a practitioner of Babaji, but he was at that time. And so I think 16 years ago now. At my house, I had a session for myself and 8 of my family members.
Wow. Have you read the autobiography of a yogi?
By chance? I have, and I wouldn't say it was in full force. I have it and would kind of read some of it.
It's dense. It's a lot. I just, I haven't had a conversation at least with somebody who's gone through a Kriya Yoga initiation.
Have you done it?
I haven't. I signed up for like the 9-month self-realization fellowship, like at home course. And they say
it's such a powerful workshop. I know in the US, I think it's there in Colorado, I believe. And Canada's, the ashram is just outside of Montreal. But that 3 days, as a 2.5 day workshop, was one of the workshops that changed my life. Like, that practice is so strong and there's lots of different breathing exercises. There's lots of different meditations. I just found like it served me so well. It's like someone teaching you how to do the bench press. And then you're like, wow, this my chest getting strong because I learned how to do like a specific exercise that works. It's worked.
Yeah, it's such a good point because with all this stuff with health, right? Like you said, there's a million morning routine things online. There's a million different diets you could do, a bunch of different workouts. And, the best one is the one we enjoy doing, but that we can stick to long term.
And I think about it for people that are getting into it or advancing it. It's about expanding your palate, right? That's what I teach my kids. Like, you don't know what you like to eat until you try all these different things. And then you realize there's certain ones that you like, and then they make you feel good. Certain foods make you feel good. Certain foods are going to make me feel good. They're not going to make you feel good. Same thing with health practices and routines. Some people, sauna is going to be, I think sauna is good for everybody. Some people like red light therapy. They're going to feel the super effects. Other people aren't, Some people supplementation and in like natural supplementation, they're going to feel the effects. Other people aren't. And so you got to expand your palate and nibble on all these different things. And then if you're in a mindful space, you're going to know what works for you. Just keep doing more of what works for you and let go of the stuff that is perfect for somebody else, but it isn't perfect for you.
And make sure you're trying them long enough. Like we were talking about with that fine line earlier.
It's like health things for sure, because a lot of things aren't. They don't have the impact of a drug, right? When you start eating healthy, you don't go to the gym and expect 3 days later you're going to be all buff and feeling strong.
Still waiting for
a lot of health practices. You do have to give it enough time, but. There's an unlimited amount of them. So just find the ones that feel good for you.
Yeah. Is there anything that you still find challenging? Anything that you still struggle with? Maybe most.
Lots of things I struggle with. I probably the biggest thing that I struggle with nowadays is things that feel like work for me and things that don't. I would relate it in this way. As an entrepreneur that had a business for 20 years, all my eggs were in basically one basket, which is super challenging, but also super easy to know what I do each day. I show up and that is my whole life, right? Besides not talking my family and my personal, but that's my whole focus of work efforts. And after success, I can do whatever I want, so to speak. And the challenge is now I have to figure out all the things that excite me that don't feel like work. They feel like fun because that's what my business did for most of those years. That's the real challenge. So, and I just give myself a lot of flexibility with that, right? Like over the last 3 or 4 years now, like I wrote a book, I launched a podcast, I started writing a newsletter, I started putting more out on social, started doing video content, like my 60-second pitch. I started mentoring more and more founders, and I'm doing those things because they make me feel good, but I'm not signing up saying that I'm going to do that forever. So I give myself a lot of flexibility to go and try it and see, because that's part of the challenge is like, it's not one thing to do.
Yeah. What is it that you feel most inspired by? No.
Growth, 100%.
Growth.
Yeah. That's why I wrote, my book is titled Grow, 12 Unconventional Lessons for Becoming an Unstoppable Entrepreneur. I usually I'm wearing the wrong hat. Put on my grow hat. No, I love growth, like personal and professional growth.
Yeah.
Not only like for me, but for others. Like I get fired up with, this is why I do a lot in the entrepreneur community, because entrepreneurs are like, they're the closest thing to magicians, right? They're making something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Making something out of nothing. There's a lot of growth there. And to be very effective, they also have to grow personally. So that's where I tend to go and spend my time and spend my energy, is around people that are interested in growth and situations that are encouraging personal and professional growth.
Yeah. Who have been like your biggest teachers, influences, mentors, whether that is somebody you engage with in person or an author or someone like Babaji, right? Like who have had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah. I think about impact like that and mentorship in general of like the 3 different kinds, right? The old guy and gal that has one-on-one mentored me, and then more of like peer-to-peer mentors that people in a similar space, and then even mass mentorship. And so I have a combination of all of them. Like some of my best mentors, a couple of them passed away already actually, but they really helped me build Manitoba Harvest over the years. One was a natural products industry sales expert. He's a great guy, but like his whole life was natural product sales. Same thing with natural products marketing expert and Mark Ragland and John Anthony, and rest in peace. And so they were 2 that were, just longtime mentors of mine. But I've created a lot of learnings from my peer-to-peer mentors. So other founders in the natural product space that I hang out with, and can just learn how they're growing their business, how they're becoming better leaders, how they're managing their work life, their family life at home, and then through mass mentorship. And my strategy for mass mentorship is going really deep. So I usually take like 5 different people that I'm interested in. Maybe you'd call it, I don't know if they're all celebrities, but like probably they're probably big enough because they're putting out some really good vibe and information. And I would kind of put my effort into getting to understand deeply those 5 in all their kind of forms. If they have a book, if they have a newsletter, if they have a podcast, like going deep with them. Yeah. Because the thing with mass mentorship is you can do that and then that can change. You can move on, So, Gary Vee's been a big one for me over the years for sure. Lewis Howes, Jesse Etzler, and so I just put my focus in a smaller amount of mass mentorship style people and kind of absorb everything I can from them. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, man, my most influential teacher was somebody I've never met. I heard him talk on a podcast and just start sharing ideas. And I just found myself going down rabbit holes. This was, I lost my job, kind of got out of tech sales in 2020. It was at a really, really low point mentally, physically. My health was really in the shitter. And I just really had no direction, didn't know where to go. And it was like hearing one thing, it sparked some interest. And I, just like went in full consumption mode of everything, you had. And it's just been so interesting to think about now as I work with coaches, as I work with clients, and how there's a one-to-one relationship. And it just kind of makes me smile. I'm like, man, the guy who's had the biggest impact, on this change and transformation is like, Dad never even met him. And I'm like,
chances are I'm probably never going to meet him either.
Yeah, no, I think that's great too. Mass mentorship. I think a lot of people don't understand. Like we're living, that's the great time of living in this time, right? You can, and there's a trap there, unfortunately, too, that you got to watch out for. Like the difference between getting healthy examples from someone compared to comparing yourself to them and then feeling defeated because you're not that or whatever, right? And with the amount of mass information and content that's being generated nowadays, but I love that mass mentorship. Everyone can do that and just plug in. And I think if you're really mindful of knowing what you want from that individual, you can go out there and self-select and get it at any time of the day or wherever you are in the world. Right?
Yeah, literally at any point in time. I'm curious about, just to get your take on a piece of advice for entrepreneurs, founders, guys that are in positions that are stressed out, they're very much in a survival state. And there's a sense of loneliness. There's a sense of like, I'm broken. I don't want to ask people for help. Maybe it makes me appear weak. I should be able to figure this shit out on my own. After all, I'm the provider and I'm the protector. What would you tell them?
I think you need to step change if you're in that, call it dire of a situation, dire in your own mind of that situation. And the things that I've learned that have majorly step changes for me are kind of workshop intensives. And I tell people all the time, like there's some great facilities around Canada and the US that if your health is in a crisis, you can literally go and check yourself in there for 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, learn a whole new system of eating and cleansing modalities and stuff and come out the other side a different person. Why? Because you changed your environment, right? You have to then maintain that when you get back home or you kind of back into your environment. But, workshops are a really effective way to get yourself into an environment, hopefully with a very strong community, and then learn these new skills, implement them, make some positive change, reach a new height of how good you're feeling about yourself. Then you can just maintain that, right? As you get back into your, call it normal life, because that's probably the bigger challenge, but that's my recommendation.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. And I have a couple just more fun, less heavy questions I want to ask as we wrap things up. Before I jump into that, on the topic or the topics we were chatting about today, I'm curious if there was a question I didn't ask that you felt like, man, this is really something that I just want to add in or share.
No, I like the whole focus of health, right? Like I do a lot of podcasts, a lot of talks, and the ones that fire me up is as we've all been talking about, is how do you help make people better? So I'm hoping that we've got some nuggets here for people to think about. I would just reiterate, like if you're in a challenging spot like right now, like put the focus on your health first, and when you become your best self, then you can get into good community, then you could do your best work. But it really starts with the foundation of being yourself.
Yeah. I love the idea that it's so simple, but it's like you're everywhere you go, right? When you go to work, you're there. When you're in a conversation with your partner, you're there. When you're hanging out with your kids, you're there. When you're going to the gym, like you are always there. And I think people can get this idea where they almost like siphon off or partition off like their work self, and they just want to focus on, no, I just need to figure out stress at work. No, I don't have time to deal with this shit over here. Like just help me with stress at work. And I think to your point, it's like,
it goes deeper than that, Tim. I'll give it to you this way. Like what I've learned about myself, and I think, but we're not our body, right? Yeah. We're not our mind. We're our spirit. And what's the difference in that? Well, your spirit can be the one that witnesses your mind thinking or witnesses your body feeling a certain way. And so meditation for me, and what I've learned about creating space and being the witness of oneself, is that you can get yourself out of some of these situations that generally are autopilot. We've all been there. You go to work and you get in the car and you drive to the office and you have a lackluster day and you don't even remember any of it because you're just going through autopilot mode. And so, it's really challenging to work on your whole life if you're not taking a step back and trying to create space so you can actually witness what's going on and then work on it in totality.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think if people really understood that and really like got that and sat with that concept.
Some people will say that's like woo-woo stuff or whatever. Like, it's, and I'm not super religious, but I'm super spiritual. I've done enough spiritual workshops and learning and meditation and breath work and yoga and things that give me and then intensified the space of, again, just being able to witness my own thoughts and witness my emotional feelings. And, a simple check-in, I'll give you this one too for your audience.
Yeah.
I call it the quadrinity check-in. I learned it actually through when I was at the Hoffman process, which is another workshop, week-long emotional processing. If you're not familiar with that, it's a great one. But the quadrinity check-in, which I usually do right at the end of my meditation, is 4 questions to myself. How am I physically feeling? And that physically feeling could be like, my digestion feels like shit because I actually ate a handful of French fries yesterday, or it could be like my toe is sore from the running exercise, or whatever I'm physically feeling in my body. But that connection with my, how I'm physically feeling, what am I mentally thinking about? Like what are the thoughts that are actually just keep going over and over in my mind? Maybe like tax season is happening and that's happening, or there's a stress in the family or something. How am I emotionally feeling? Am I feeling happy and joyous right now? Am I scared? Am I nervous? And then what's a message from my spiritual self, which has been a number of different things over time, like focus on having fun, or don't take life so seriously, or like, a number of things that are coming from my ultimate energy and my spirit. And so that quadrinity check-in over and over again over the last 8-9 years has been super helpful for me, because I didn't understand all those thoughts and feelings that were happening in the body before were just emotional response. They were mental anxiety. And if you could separate those and create a little bit of space, then what I found is people say, well, you're really calm. And it's like, instead of driving right up against my windshield of life, I'm in the back seat where I have a lot of time to take everything in, and it doesn't like freak me out like you would if you're pressed up right against the glass.
Yeah, amazing. It starts to objectify your experience and just creates a little bit of space between you and it. So instead of like stressed out, all encompassing, it's like, look, we can just put it here and we can look at it.
Yeah, I used to think it was kind of like multiple, not voices, but like multiple things going on in my head. Am I going crazy? No. What's going crazy is like I'm in pain, I'm in physical pain, and I'm feeling anxietous for, I'm stressed out because we have a test coming up, or the business is losing money this month, or whatever's going on. And then emotionally I'm scared, but you mix all 3 of those together, and a lot of people, if they haven't done some of that work, wouldn't even be able to identify what they're feeling. They can go to a place of like the circuit breaking, right? Yeah. That's a way to strengthen the system, that quadrinity check-in. And if we'll try that on a daily basis for even a couple of weeks, I think you'll feel a lot more mindful.
Change your life. Even the ease with which that you said, I'm scared, right? I think what that shows is, we don't have to identify with feelings. We can notice them, and it starts to take the sting out of it. Meaning, like, there's going to be, I'll just speak for men too, right? Is like a lot of guys are not going to be willing to say, I'm scared right now.
Yeah, I understand that. But you know what? We're not our feelings.
Exactly.
We can witness our feelings, right? And so like, I'm feeling scared. And by the way, the more times that I've said that, the easier it is. And so there's no charge to it at all. It's just a feeling. And quite the opposite though, like people get into the opposite trap, is that when you feel happy or elated, you can overdo that. Like you can get yourself out of control because you're feeling so spontaneous, so elated, right? Where it's just a feeling as well. Don't be too high, don't be too low. Just witness what's going on in your body, and then make changes to your lifestyle to affect that in the long term.
Yeah.
So you don't put yourself into situations where you're not feeling, but hopefully the best. Which I like to think of. You align all 4 of those things and you're living your best day ever every day. That's where everyone should be. I want that for the world.
Yeah, amazing, man. Well, okay, I got a couple questions for you to kind of wrap. I'm a big reader. You can tell by bookshelf with some of my books. I'm curious, what has been the most impactful book for you, whether it's in the last year, the last couple of years? Is there one that stands out?
Probably from a business standpoint, Good to Great by Jim Collins is I think one of the best business books of all time.
Yeah. Okay. And then we got the Olympics going on right now. If you were to get onto the podium for Canada, what sport would you want most? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I used to play professional pool when I was younger, like tournament pool and stuff. So I don't think there's pool in the Olympics as of yet, but that's still my sport of choice, where I kick some solid ass. I'm not sure about the gold medal, but I love billiards, and I could take that to the world stage.
Yeah, awesome, man. Mike, man, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for coming on, sharing some wisdom, sharing about your practice and just your approach to making sure that you're feeling your best day to day and what goes into that.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me, and congrats on the show. And I love that you're helping. You're specifically focused on helping men out, and
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the conversation. You know, I think we got into some things that are going to be nuggets for people to consider.
Yeah. So where can people find you, and if they want to get in touch and
Yeah, I
work
mean,
with you?
all things me at mikefata.ca, mikefata.ca is my website. I'm most active on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn or Instagram, if they want to connect on social, just drop me a line and tell and say that you heard me on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.